I see a theme emerging today, and that had to do with the attempt to humanize George Floyd, because the narrative that the defense certainly had been trying to portray to some extent is this was a dangerous man, a dangerous situation that they only could use force given what was happening. But so far, everyone we've seen come to the stand, certainly those from the supermarket or that store, have actually tried to paint a different demeanor of George Floyd.
Isn't it something that in 2021 we have to spend this much time humanizing not the perpetrator of a crime, but the victim of a murder? This is exactly what it means to be Black in America. Yes, you're exactly right. This humanizing has been the theme of the prosecution thus far, because it unfortunately has to be, because we've already heard in the opening statements of the defense the idea that an angry mob and an angry person are what caused Derek Chauvin, with all of his training and with the oaths that he swore, to act outside of himself, or even within the idea that he was acting as he was trained to do. So this humanization is exactly the right thing to point to, and we should be dealing with the fact and reckoning with the fact that humanization has to be happening at all. The theater of the courtroom continues to wreak havoc and cause violence and trauma for Black communities. And the reminder that we have to be humanized, even when we are the ones who were murdered, that reminder is another form of trauma.
And I made this point earlier that I noticed that a lot of the witnesses, Brittany, talked about the guilt, about the different things they could have all done if they would not have called the police, if they would have put the $20 tab on their, the $20 bill on their own tab, if they could have done more to prevent this. And yet at the end of the day, it was only one officer's knee who was on the neck of George Floyd for those 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and nobody else should feel guilty about that.
Well, there are a couple of other people who should feel guilty about it. It was the other officers who allowed Derek Chauvin to continue to do what he was doing. But you are correct once again. The people who are suffering from this consistent trauma and this repeated violence are the very people who were trying to figure out how to protect George Floyd. But unfortunately, there was little way that they could protect George Floyd other than what they already did, and actually go home to see their own families. Why? Because Blackness is weaponized in America. They knew that if they had physically intervened, that they too could have met the same fate that unfortunately George Floyd did. We are talking about people who have the utmost training, who get budgets that are grown over year after year, who increase the investment of that training, who are sworn to serve and protect our communities. Those people should be held to the very highest standards, not civilians, teenagers, children who are walking by and going about their day. The fact that we are asking more of civilians, many of them Black themselves, than we are asking of police officers who are armed and dangerous in our communities tells us everything that we need to know.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.